let me just tell everybody, it's not the Jews, it's not the Muslims who are attacking me. I got a call from the White House one day, and it was from the designated federal officer who serves at the White House. And she told me that some people in the White House were concerned about my posts about Gaza and Israel, and that I needed to stop posting about Zionism, and that I'm not allowed to be an anti-Zionist to be on this commission. I thought he cared about religious freedom. And so I'm really disappointed in him so far that he hasn't come out in defense of Catholics who 56% of them voted for him in 2024, but yet the only Catholic female on this commission who dared have the guts to speak out for her faith is now being removed. As you know, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism, just so you know. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, according to you?
As I said, anti-Zionism, by denying the right of the Jews to have their own state while not saying the same for any other peoples, that is a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
So just to be clear, are Catholics anti-Semites because they don't?
Carrie, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt.
Well, there has been quite a bit of controversy surrounding the first Religious Liberty Commission panel discussion on anti-Semitism. The fiery woman that you just watched in that video is Carrie Prejean, who has since been fired from this panel entirely. Who fired her? Well, the chair of the commission, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And if you have questions about this story, don't worry, because luckily we have Carrie with us today, and I've got a lot to ask her. Carrie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
First, let me just say, I give you a lot of credit for being willing to speak out the way that you spoke out during that discussion. It does seem like, when it comes to the topic of religious liberty, one particular religion seems to enjoy that liberty more than others, and that was perfectly illustrated in the exchanges that you had. But I want to start off by kind of getting a better understanding of how you got involved in this commission in the first place.
That's a great question. So I've known the president for almost 20 years now. I was Miss California, went to Miss USA. I'm sure everybody remembers the famous question that I received. Do I believe in gay marriage? No, I don't. Went on to be, one of the conservative darlings on the right. And so the president and I remained friends over the years. I supported him relentlessly. And so now, fast forward, that was 2009, fast forward to 2024. And, he wins the election. And then I get a call from the White House one day saying, hey, Carrie, we see that you're a new Catholic and we would love for you to serve on the Religious Liberty Commission. The president has appointed you. So this was a appointment by the president, and only the president has the power to remove me.
So Carrie, there's a controversy as to whether you're actually fired or not, because Dan Patrick says, you dare to have religious liberty, so obviously you can't be on the Religious Liberty Commission. And doesn't note the irony. And you
can't make this up.
Yeah, totally. And we'll get into all the details in a second, but you say that he does not have the power to remove you from the commission. So where do we stand now?
Yeah, so according to the executive order, I think they thought I was just this dumb blonde bimbo, out in California that was a pageant girl that wasn't catechized well in my Catholic faith, recent convert. Oh, she'll just shut up and obey, and she'll just go along with it to, be close to the president and have access. But you know what? My faith and my integrity means more to me than having access to the White House and fancy dinners. He doesn't have any authority. Dan Patrick is an equal to mine on this commission. He is a commissioner just as I am. And under the executive order, I've done a little bit of research and spoken to several attorneys. Dan Patrick is overstepping his authority. He has zero authority to remove me, just like I have zero authority to remove him. So I'd appreciate, Dan, I know you probably have aspirations to running for president, but you're not the president. So we'll see what the president does about this, but I don't think he appreciates you overstepping your authority, Dan. You're an equal to mine.
Carrie, I gotta say, I'm a little bit astounded by your faith in Donald Trump. Okay, you've known him for multiple decades, so obviously you know him on a personal level way better than I ever will. But at the same time, he hasn't stepped up to defend you at all. And in fact, his actions in his second term show me that he is willing to carry water for Zionists over pretty much anyone else. But maybe I'm misreading it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm very frustrated. I'm very disappointed that he hasn't come forward yet. I have been told that he is getting tremendous pressure from Zionists, Christian Zionists in particular. Let me just tell everybody, it's not the Jews, it's not the Muslims who are attacking me, it's Christian Zionists. Those are the ones who are attacking me. They're mad that I converted to Catholicism, and they're mad that I dared to speak out against Israel because that's their religion. You can't speak out against Israel. And I am here, I ripped the Band-Aid off, I exposed the elephant in the room. It needed to be done. And it took a 38-year-old mom out of California to do it. So shame on everybody that was on that stage that day that the president appointed to uphold religious freedom. And they decided to keep their mouths shut to protect their businesses, protect their corporations, and to protect their access to the president. So I'm hopeful. It's not over yet. I'm hopeful that the president does the right thing. I know he's getting a lot of heat right now from the Catholics. So we'll see what happens.
I caught your interview with Ryan Grimm today. It was a great conversation, and something that caught my attention was what you had to say about the pressure campaign to get you to resign even before that panel discussion took place. Can you elaborate on that a little for our audience?
Yes, so it's quite sad, actually. I didn't come forward with this before because I really do believe in religious freedom, and I was honored to be on this commission, and I wanted to do my job, and my job was to protect religious freedom for all, even the religions that I don't hold firm to. So that's really what I was committed to. Well, back up to August, I was starting to speak out about Gaza. I couldn't deny my eyes. I couldn't deny the fact that there were innocent children starving and innocent families slaughtered and bombed, and just the tremendous amount of suffering that I witnessed with my own two eyes. So I started posting, I started talking about it, and I started, posting about what Pope Leo was saying about, the genocide in Gaza. I know he didn't use those words, but I'm using those words because it is a genocide, in fact, a Holocaust. And so I was posting about it, and I was just spreading awareness. Well, I got a call from the White House one day, and it was from the designated federal officer who serves at the White House. And she told me that some people in the White House were concerned about my posts about Gaza and Israel, and that I needed to stop posting about Zionism, and that I'm not allowed to be an anti-Zionist to be on this commission.
Wow.
Well, fast forward, I told the lady I'm not resigning. There's no reason to resign. And then I see the president at the next hearing, and he came up to me and we had an exchange, and he said, I know you, Carrie, and I know the real you, and you're staying on this commission, obviously. So he had my back then, and so I'm hopeful that he'll have my back now and not gonna cave under Zionist supremacist pressure.
All right, it's time for New Year's resolutions. We all make them, but I'm not making any big flashy resolutions that are gonna crash and burn by February. My reset is much simpler. It's about giving myself a break in the kitchen. Not by eating less, don't be crazy. But let's be honest, thinking about what to eat, shopping for it, cooking it, it's a drain. And when you're drained from cooking, you can't focus on the work that matters, and that's the work right here. That's where Cook Unity comes in. It's been my way of cheating. Like I have a personal chef. I'm very fancy that way, please. But without the insane cost. Restaurant quality meals on my schedule. So I ordered a bunch of things that I loved. So we got the pepperoni naan pizza. I love pepperoni pizza, I love naan. You put it together, it's genius. Golden chicken schnitzel. It's schnitzel, but it's golden. Okay, this stuff is all so good. New Orleans shrimp and grits, they have sausage in there too. Love it. And that's my point, guys. These aren't boring and repetitive meals. These are all-star chefs, Food Network alum, and James Beard winners. Handpicking seasonal ingredients and balancing bold flavors with nutrition. Every meal is a small batch masterpiece delivered fresh, never frozen. It makes hitting wellness goals effortless because a nutritious, incredible meal is ready in minutes. No shopping, no cooking, no cleanup. You can browse by chef, by cuisine, filter macros to the gram, not a thing I would do, but you could. And it's way less than takeout or even grocery store prices. Plus their packaging is part of a reusable, eco-friendly program. You can't ask for more. Taste comfort and craftsmanship in every bite from the award-winning chefs behind Cook Unity. Go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter code TYT before checkout to get 50% off your first order. That's 50% off your first order by using code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT.
But yeah, there was a witch hunt against me, Anna, and it's unfortunate because all I was doing was standing up for life. I'm pro-life, and I have every right to stand up for the innocent lives that were being taken in Gaza. And I wasn't going to deny my eyes. And then fast forward from there, Dan Patrick and Paula White called me shortly thereafter, around end of August, early September. And they said, Carrie, you really got to stop posting on social media. Your job here on this commission is protect the president.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not to protect religious freedom.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I've got a million questions, but I want to, first of all, by the way, I want to say before the questions that about a year and a half ago, as the genocide was, already in horrific shape, I started asking, where are the pro-life folks? What happened to all the talk about protecting kids and babies, and not only 20,000 kids, but 1,000 kids under the age of 1, hence babies, right? And something startling happened. The pro-life people showed up. You guys did, and it was beautiful to see. Because there's so much hypocrisy in politics, and so for folks like you and Tom Massey and others to come and go, yeah, this is not the pro-life position. This is the exact opposite of the pro-life position. Just for you to stick to your principles, I love that. So and by the way, in America, we're supposed to have freedom to, and so I'm pro-choice, you're pro-life, but at least you're consistent on it, at least you're principled on it, and we agree on saving life in this particular case. Okay, now the logistical questions, because it's important. So when they picked you for the commission, did they tell you in any kind of detail what the commission's mission was supposed to be, or they just said religious liberty, so obviously religious liberty, or was there some instructions involved?
That's a really good question. So they gave us, kind of a rundown of what this commission is supposed to do. So we were supposed to have hearings once a month in Washington, D.C. We're supposed to hear from everyday average Americans like myself who are facing religious persecution and silence for their religious beliefs, which is so ironic. So we've had these hearings since August, and our job as commissioners is to really talk to everyday average Americans. And we're supposed to take notes, we're supposed to write a report, and then in May, at the end of our term, we're supposed to sit down with President Trump and advise him on what he can do to ensure religious freedom for all Americans, for all religions in this country. He cares, I thought he cared about religious freedom. And so I'm really disappointed in him so far that he hasn't come out in defense of Catholics who 56% of them voted for him in 2024, but yet the only Catholic female on this commission who had the guts to speak out for her faith is now being removed. What about you caring about religious freedom, Mr. President?
Right.
So, okay.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, for sure. So let's keep going. So when you guys had the different meetings, did people come and say, hey, I'm worried about being persecuted as a Muslim, as an evangelical, as a Christian, as a Jew, as a Buddhist, etc.? Or because in that particular one that we all saw because of the controversy, it was just about
anti-Semitism specifically.
Yes, so there's different topics. So like there's religious liberty in education, there's religious liberty in healthcare, there's religious liberty in the military, there's religious liberty in dealing with anti-Semitism. And I guess they wanted to talk about Israel over 17 times. I'm like, is this a Israel commission? Is this a Zionist commission? What's going on here? This is so fake. This is so pretend that you care about religious liberty when it comes to Jewish Americans. Why didn't we hear from a child who was told that they can't wear the little, yarmulke or whatever it's called? Why weren't we told that some student on a college campus, was told that they can't pray, or a Muslim or whatever? Like, why are we hearing about Israel over and over and over again? It's nauseating. It's getting so old. And I knew at this hearing, because they tried to do an intervention and all the backstory with them trying to fire me back in August, I knew that this was gonna be a pivotal moment, a turning point for our country. And I had to speak up, especially for my Catholic faith. Because what they said on that stage is that if you're not a Zionist, you're an anti-Semite, you're a hateful bigot. That was the statement that they made. And I will tell you, I reject that. That is hatred towards Catholicism. And I, as a Catholic, am deeply offended, and so many Catholics are. We are the furthest thing from filled with hate. We are the furthest thing from being bigots. All we want is to stand up for our religious freedom and reject Zionist supremacy, because we as Catholics, we don't believe that Israel today has anything to do with Israel of the Bible, okay? Christianity has been hijacked by evangelical Christian Zionists, and it's time we take Christianity back. They don't speak for me. I don't wave the Israeli flag, okay? I stand for freedom, and I stand for my religious freedom in this country to say whatever I want.
Yeah, what I thought was really, really important to kind of focus on from the whole controversy is the fact that you kept trying to make the point that Zionism is not the same as Judaism, right?
Yes.
Discriminating against people for being Jewish or for having, Judaism as their faith. Yeah, that is wrong. But Zionism,
I reject that.
Yeah, Zionism is a political ideology. That's what it is. It's a political ideology.
No, they don't want you to believe that. They don't want you to believe that. They want you to equate Zionism, a political ideology, racist political ideology. Okay, I've done a lot of research since then. And I have learned so much about how the founding of Israel was created, the 700,000 innocent Palestinians that had to be displaced, many of them slaughtered, their houses were overtaken. No, I reject the fact that they think that they can just commit a genocide because they're God's chosen people. No, the Catholic Church actually teaches that the church is the new Israel, okay? So if you're catechized well, that's what you know, and that's what you should be saying.
Yeah, so along those lines, I mean, because there's rabbis who are against Zionism because they say it's nationalism and that will corrupt our religion. It'll corrupt Judaism. And so they're against it. In fact, you asked about that, Carrie, and you asked if a rabbi who was against Zionism, and you quoted the rabbi, was anti-Semitic, and they said yes. That's absurd. That's so absurd,
insane. Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
So I
Everybody's
love that
an
question.
anti-Semite. I guess everyone's an anti-Semite now. If we're all anti-Semites, even a Jewish rabbi is an anti. This is absurd.
Yeah.
I reject it. It's insanity. Okay.
So absolutely. What I was gonna say is, since it's nationalism, it's like saying, hey, we're doing a religious liberty commission and none of you are allowed to disagree with Turkish nationalism. You'd be like, wait, what? Why do I have to care about Turkish nationalism? And why was that related to religious liberty? But when it comes to Israel, they're like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so has Dan Patrick ever explained, or addressed the fact that he's taking away your religious liberty while heading the Religious Liberty Commission?
He is so reckless, and I think that he thought he was so tough by going online and saying, this is my choice, I'm removing her. Cool, Dan, you're not a tough guy. You look like a big loser right now, Dan. Catholics are furious with you. Christians are furious with you. People of all faiths are furious with you. Because if you deny, go ahead.
No, besides which, I mean, I don't really understand how Christian Zionists reconcile their so-called pro-life stance while fully standing by Israel as they mass slaughter children in Gaza, and further victimize, by the way, people in Lebanon, Syria, the West Bank. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. But when you talk about how you value human life, I'm so curious what your thoughts were after you had this exchange with my personal favorite, Shabbos Kestenbaum. And I'm being sarcastic, but nonetheless, this exchange, for whatever reason, no, I know exactly why, really got under my skin. So we're gonna play it for the audience, and then I wanna get your thoughts. What was going through your mind as he was saying this? Let's watch, and then I'll get your thoughts.
Since we've mentioned Israel a total of 17 times, are you willing to condemn what Israel has done in Gaza?
No, because I unilaterally I unilaterally reject that it's not a genocide. The only genocide ever carried out was on October 7th when Hamas tried killing every man, woman, and child they could possibly find. Hang on, let me respond.
70,000 innocent civilians killed.
Let me respond. So first of all,
you won't condemn that.
And Carrie,
just on the record.
He's already. Excuse me.
Okay.
As chair of the committee.
I think it's important we have this discussion.
I agree. I'm happy to answer.
And Carrie,
I think we'd be great friends.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer.
Carrie, we have had the discussion. Good questions, good answers. This is a commission on religious liberty. If there's another commission on this issue,
I don't know why we're talking about a foreign country.
You didn't even frame the question with the word genocide. You just asked him to comment on whether or not he was okay with what Israel carried out in Gaza. And as we all know, Gaza has been totally flattened. Okay, tens of thousands of innocent people slaughtered. Number is very likely higher than that. They're not allowing international journalists into the Gaza Strip so they can do reporting on the ground. We just have to take Israel's word for it when it comes to information on what's happening there. What was going through your mind as you heard Shabos argue that what happened on October 7th was a genocide, but what Israel has carried out in Gaza is not?
Yeah, I was really trying to just stay calm and stay on the facts, and I was wanting my questions answered. That's why I asked a lot of questions, and all I said was, there's over 70,000 innocent Palestinians that have been slaughtered. What do you have to say about that? And he's like, no, it's not a genocide. It's not a genocide. Okay, so you think that October 7th was a genocide, but killing 70,000 innocent Palestinians wasn't a genocide? It doesn't make any sense. And his argument, I mean, you could see how nervous he was. I mean, I feel so bad. He was talking so fast, he couldn't even, and then he was telling the guy next to him to be quiet, and then Dan had to interject. It was just a circus. It was completely chaotic. And shame on the chairman for interrupting, because I do think that these questions were very important and answering them. I mean, if this topic is on anti-Semitism, I wanted to define what is anti-Semitism. And I brought up the IHRA definition, which is deeply concerning as a Christian, that certain parts of the Bible are considered anti-Semitic speech. And I read the verses in the Bible that says the Jews killed Jesus. So if someone says that, what are you gonna do? Arrest them? Put them in jail? I mean, where does this lead to, you guys? This is very dangerous. This is serious.
Yeah, so look, for me, I got no dog in the fight about who killed Jesus, right? But I do have a dog in the fight about American rights, First Amendment rights, free speech rights, religious liberty rights.
Yeah.
So, so in the case of October 7th that Shabos mentioned, as you're pointing out, basically Israel did 70 October 7ths, but they said that doesn't count. Okay, again, all right, that's a difference of opinion. No big deal in America, everybody gets to say their opinions. But you made a great point. Wait, we're talking about religious liberty, but you guys introduced the topic of Israel. Not Carrie didn't, they did, right? And they introduced this 17 different times. And the point was, our religious liberty, in their case, they're claiming to speak for Jewish Americans, right? They're saying our religious liberty means that you cannot have your religious liberty.
Exactly.
You cannot say anything against Israel, because as the guys you were questioning, I think they were rabbis, but I'm not sure, were saying, yeah, you are not allowed to demonize Israel. That's considered anti-Semitic, so you will be made to shut up if you do that. If you have a double standard, but what's a double standard? They think everything's a double standard.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're against Zionism, but you're not against other ethno-states. That's not true. I'm against all ethno-states. How do you know what's in my head? But shut up, shut up, shut up was the theme. So then that made me question, wait, what's the point of this commission? Going full circle. Are they going to write a report saying that Americans should shut up and it should never criticize Israel because that means you're taking away religious liberty from Jewish people, or some ludicrous thing like this? Was this all a front just to be able to tell Americans, shut up about your religions, only
you have to defend Israel. You have to defend Israel and be in support of Israel. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite. It seems like that was the only takeaway from the first panel discussion. And that's insane. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And prior to even me getting on this commission, I had been posting about Israel and Gaza before I even was hired. So, I mean, none of my statements have changed. I've always been pro-life. I've always, spoken out about what was happening since October 7th. And what I don't understand is you can say what happened on October 7th to innocent civilians is wrong. And you can also say that killing over 70,000 innocent Palestinians, starving them to death and destroying the entire, Palestinian land there is a genocide, and it's wrong. And if you can't say the two, something's really wrong with you. And my point is that the other side, I requested 4 Jewish Americans to speak at this hearing. I requested 2 Palestinian Christian groups to speak at this hearing on anti-Semitism. Who better than Norm Finkelstein? I suggested him. He was denied. Oh, Dan Patrick didn't want him anywhere near this commission. He's the wrong type of Jewish American. He's not a Zionist Jew. That's the problem. So Nico Pallad, he's a pro-Palestinian. He was denied. Rabbi Shapiro, he was denied. Oh, you want to label me an anti-Semite? No, you guys are anti-Semites because you don't want the full story. You just want the Zionists. That's all you want. Zionist supremacists.
And that is, again, it's not about religion, it's about nationality. No. So they're saying, I don't care if you're a Jewish American, a Catholic American, or whatever you are not allowed to speak out against Israel. That takes away the religious beliefs of the rabbis that you mentioned, let alone everyone else. So again, I come back to, what is the point of this commission?
It's a fraud. It's a fraud. It should be shut down. Every American should be calling for this religious liberty to be completely shut down. Because I was actually looking forward to meeting with the president in person in May and telling him what I feel about how Christians in Palestine, Muslims in Palestine, I mean, they are being slaughtered and nobody's doing anything about it, and we're funding this as Americans? And yet me as a Catholic American, I'm not allowed to say that a genocide is wrong that we're funding? You want to bomb the only Catholic church in Gaza and claim that that's okay? And nobody in our government says a word about it?
Yeah,
shame on them.
That's the final question for me, at least. How do so-called Christian Zionists in America see the footage, the photos, the way Christians are treated by Israel, and think that that's okay? You know, they get spit on. There's a Armenian community in Jerusalem. There's the Armenian Quarter. They get discriminated against. They get harassed by Israeli settlers all the time. Their area is now kind of under threat as Israel seeks to take it over. And so how do Christian Zionists, again, defend that? How do you defend that as a Christian? I don't understand.
Here's what it is. I've thought long and hard about this. They cannot defend it, but you know what? Their allegiance, and they worship money and power and fame more than they have a soul. They are not willing to speak out because they're owned. They're slaves. They're not free people. Every single person on that stage that day was too afraid to get involved in this discussion. If they really cared about religious freedom, all of them would have stood up and said, you know what? Carrie's right. She's not an anti-Semite for being against Zionism. Her Catholic theology doesn't support Zionism, a political new ideology that was established in 1948. Give me a break. If they really had courage, they would have done that, but they didn't, because they're too worried about their money and their access and their big organizations. Yeah. That's what I'm disappointed in. I'm disappointed in all those people, all those well-established people. I'm just a little mom in California that dared to have the courage to stand up for my faith, and millions of Catholics from across this world who support me and say, thank you. Thank you. You actually are the only one on that stage on Monday that cared about religious freedom, and you were willing to be fired because of it. And yes, I was.
Yeah, so last couple of things for me. And by the way, you're a regular American. That's why you actually have more credibility, not less credibility. Yeah. Because those well-established guys, whether they're politicians or they're pastors, have been taking money from the Israeli lobby for decades.
Yes.
So like they're literally bought by this foreign government, and then they tell their own parishioners, you are to shut up and obey this foreign government. But what's more troubling is what you said earlier about how people from the White House kept calling you and telling you not to criticize Israel even before this happened, right? So that means our government is compromised. And the reason I say that is, if our government has cooked up a religious liberty commission to take away religious liberty and force everyone to basically have allegiance to Israel, that means that's not our government.
No, it's not. And you know what? It breaks my heart. I've spent over 15 years, almost 20 years, you guys, defending this president. I've spent countless hours and arguments with family and friends, and spent time away from my children. And this president wants to appoint me on the Religious Liberty Commission because he trusts me. He knows my past. He knows that I'll always stand for what's right, regardless of the consequences. And yet he doesn't trust me, that I know what I'm talking about, and that I have every right to say what I said on that stage.
I was watching a different conversation you had with Lila Rose, and you talked about your conversion from Protestant to Catholicism, and it's so obvious that you've done your due diligence and you care deeply about, the religious doctrine and you understand it really well. So I give you a lot of credit for that because you're not an actor. This isn't some attention-seeking stunt. This is something that you clearly care about, and I remember covering, your views on gay marriage. And obviously we disagree with you on that.
Yeah, and that's fine.
But that video was from a long time ago. So you've held these beliefs for a while now, so.
Yeah, and it's called America. We're allowed to state our opinions. We're allowed to disagree. We're allowed to have any religious beliefs we like. And for me, I'm an atheist and I want to protect religious belief more than anyone does. Because we're gonna be the first one on the chopping block if religious beliefs are, if freedom is taken away. And so I mean, that's why part of why we love this country. But so since I'm an atheist, I got one last question for you. You say that it's your Catholic belief to not be in favor of Zionism. So help me understand that. Why is that?
Okay, so I as you can tell, I didn't think we were gonna get into a theological discussion at an anti-Semitic hearing, but that's where it went. So to make it very clear, so Christian Zionists, mostly evangelicals, believe that in order for the second coming of Christ to come, there needs to be the Dome of the Rock in Israel needs to be torn down, and that there needs to be a rebuilding of the temple, of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. So what do you think that means? That means that they've been brainwashing Christians to hate Muslims because we need to cheer on that, Dome of the Rock being torn down, so that way they can build the third temple, usher in the second coming of Christ. And then they believe that Jesus is gonna reign in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. I mean, you guys, this theological supremacy, our founding fathers are probably rolling in their graves right now. This is not what our founding fathers wanted. They didn't want, yes, our nation was built on Christian principles, obviously. But guess what? They did not want one church, one specific, denomination of Christianity to be ruling every state. And so I'm telling, I don't want to get too much into the theological aspect of it, but that's the Christian Zionist perspective. And
dispensationalism,
so
right?
Yes, dispensationalism. It's the Ted Cruz. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. They think that the modern state of Israel, that is the biblical fulfillment prophecy, that we all need to cheer that on, that was God's plan to bring them back to the land. No, we reject that as Catholics. We actually believe that we are the new Israel, that we are the new people of God. The old covenant is now fulfilled in the new through Christ, that the promises made from the old are now fulfilled in the new, and that we are the new people of God. It's very simple. And Jesus will come again. That's our belief, that he will come again to judge the living and the dead. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I grew up in the
hijack Christianity.
I grew up in the Apostolic Church, Armenian Apostolic Church, which is very similar to Catholicism. I've learned, and yeah, we learned the same thing in Sunday school. So
yeah,
dispensationalism. Like I learned about that a few years ago, and I was like, I've never heard of this in my life. So yeah.
And the crazy part about it is they think in the end, the Christian Zionists think in the end that 2/3 are going to be cut off. The Jews. So there's basically gonna be a second Holocaust. This is what they believe, you guys. This is
crazy.
Theological insanity. And they've hijacked Christianity and they do not represent us, real Catholics who've been around for 2,000 years. And this is not what the church has taught, and we reject Zionism. Yes, we are for the Jewish people to, live and let live, but guess what? We don't agree that 1948 Israel has any biblical fulfillment prophecy whatsoever. And I challenge any Catholic to challenge me on that.
Yeah, there's no question. It's not in the Bible. There's no United Nations in 1948. I mean, it's absurd. All of it is absurd. All the so-called predictions of the dispensationalists are not in the Bible either. It's invented. In fact, look, I don't know why they decided to write those particular prophecies. I don't know if Israel was clever enough to guide them in that direction. I don't know. But what I do know is, you just explained to us your deeply held religious beliefs. There's no one can argue about that. And they're saying you cannot think those things, because if you do, we're gonna label you an anti-Semite, and then consequences will flow from you being labeled an anti-Semite. So this commission is undoubtedly to take away religious liberty. And I keep asking why? Why in a country that is about 70% Christian is the president of the United States, with his voting base being largely Christian, saying you do not get to have your religious beliefs if it interferes with Israel's political agenda? It's stunning in the year 2026 in America.
Absolutely.
It is stunning. It is stunning. And I don't know if they thought I would just shut up and obey and just go along to get along and, have access. But they obviously don't know me, because I'm not one to back down from the truth. And I will always stand for my religious freedom to stand up for what I believe in and not be punished for it. And let me just tell everybody, I'm not paid to be on this commission. I don't know if everybody knows this. This is volunteer. I am not paid. They pay for my flights and they pay for my hotel. And that's it. So I am serving the American people. I am the only one so far on this commission that is willing. Nobody's even spoken out about this. Why? Because they're too afraid. They're too afraid of the backlash. They don't want to be called an anti-Semite.
Totally.
They don't want to be called a bigot.
Yeah.
Oh, but they want to hide behind me. I have calls and texts. Keep doing what you're doing. I support you. There's people in the White House that support you, but they're too afraid. They call you the GOAT. Really? Well, why aren't you speaking out? You want me to take the heat for all of you?
They do, and you know what? It takes a special kind of person, I would know, because I think I'm one of them, to continue speaking out, knowing that you're gonna face some serious consequences. I've had family members harassed, their jobs threatened. They're not even political figures or members of the media. So I know, the stakes here, and I really commend you for not just talking the talk, but walking the walk when it comes to your faith. And even more than that, the fact that you know the difference between right and wrong. Because right now we're living in a climate where people are being pressured to support something that we all know is wrong, and that's the mass slaughter of innocents. So thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that. And it's so when regular people email you or whatever it might be, send you a note and say, hey, thank you for fighting for us. That's beautiful, right? When people inside the government do it, well, number one, they're using you as a human shield, and that's weird, and it is cowardly. But number two, the more disturbing fact is, why are people inside the American government so afraid to speak out against Israel that they need a random mom to do it? Because if they do it, presumably they'll be fired. So is this our government or is it Israel's government?
That's what I want to know. It's a great question. I want to know, who are we? What is going on? Why are we talking about Israel? I told them at the intervention meeting at 7:30, they had an intervention meeting before the hearing went on, and Dan Patrick was panicking, and Ben Carson was there and Paula White, and they were like, we don't know what Carrie's gonna say. And they sat me down and they're like, you better not, disrupt this meeting. And I'm like, well, are we gonna talk about Israel? Because if you talk about Israel, I'm gonna talk about Gaza. So if you don't talk about Israel, I won't talk about Gaza. But they couldn't do it because they've brainwashed people, Christians and many other groups, to worship Israel. And like I said, I would rather die. I would rather die than worship Israel, a genocidal state that is committing genocide against innocent Palestinians.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And I reject that. And it feels so free, you guys. I honestly feel so free. I'm no longer in chains.
Yes.
I'm no longer in chains. And you know what? I wasn't. I continue to post and I continue to tell them. And I have the emails to prove it. I have the text to prove it. I have all the receipts. I reached out to many people on the commission and I said, hey, they're trying to silence me for my religious beliefs. What do you think about this?
Yeah. No, Americans.
Quiet.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Americans don't bow, and they're demanding that we bow, and we're not going to bow. And Carrie's right. The minute you liberate yourself and say, I'll say whatever I want, you're not gonna stop me from criticizing any foreign nation. I don't care if it's Israel or any other nation. And this has nothing to do with religion other than you taking away my rights. So look, I want the audience to understand that's what the face of courage looks like. So Carrie, we really, really appreciate you joining us and for fighting the good fight on behalf of all Americans.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.